was teaching this one day to a class, and a fellow stopped me in the middle of the class and said, "Whoa, wait a minute. See, you think people should give to God first as their highest financial priority?" I'm like, "Yes." He said, "I don't buy it. I don't believe it. That would never work." He said, "Who's going to take care of my kids? Who's going to pay my bills? How can my family's needs ever be met?" That night Bob calls me on the phone, said, "Brian, were you really serious about giving to God first?" I'm like, "Yeah." He said, "Well, I'd be too scared to do that." He said, "What if God doesn't take care of me?" I said, "He'll probably do better than you're doing yourself, so just trust him, you know." He said, "I'll do this under one condition." I said, "What's that?" He said, "You have to start a tithers support group at our church." I said, "Bob, what do you mean tithers support group?" He said, "You know, where all of us can get together, we can talk about how miserable we are and how hard it is and how mean this thing is and how terrible life is." And I prayed, I said, "Lord, what do I do?" And God gave me an answer. And I said, "Bob, we'll start a support group of 2. And he said, "Who, you and me?" I said, "No." He said, "Who?" I said, "You and God." He said, "What does he have to do with it?" I said, "Everything. Everything." He said, "You mean if I give to God, God's going to suddenly show up in my life?" I said, "More than he is now." He said, "I'm not sure." Next week, Bob comes walking into the church. He's got a check in his hand. He goes, "Brian, you better start praying." First check to God. How's God going to provide? I went home. "God, please, please provide for Bob." Bob calls me end of the week, tells me I'm lucky. I said, "Why am I lucky, Bob?" And he said, "Well, I got a letter from the Christian school where we send our kids, and they did an audit on the books, and they discovered that 3 or 4 years ago that we overpaid them $136, and they sent us a check." I said, "Bob, that's a bona fide miracle because no Christian school in the history of the world has ever sent anybody money." Another time, Bob told me that he called and he said, "Brian, I was out of money and I was kind of disappointed and upset." And he said, "I didn't even have enough money for my bus." And I said, "Well, what happened?" He said, "Well, somebody called me and they asked me if I needed a bus ticket." And I told the person that, "Well, I need a bus ticket, but I need a bus ticket for bus number 57, and you live on the other side of town." And they said, "Yeah, that's the weirdest thing. We found this ticket, and it's bus 57. And Bob says, "Brian, God even knows my bus number." You know?